Time to panic or time for patience? Iowa fans starting to get a bit uneasy as another big man, a target of Fran McCaffery's in the portal, selects a different Power 5 school. Theo Akwuba selecting Ole Miss over Iowa on this Monday, and so now people wondering, where do you go from here? Where do we go from here? Where do you go as it relates to trying to get a big man in the transfer portal? Fran's made it clear he wants to get a big man. Where do they turn, and is it time to panic? More on that in a moment. But first, I want to thank our sponsor for this video, Randy Engel over at Under the Kitchen, authentic Hawkeye player artwork. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook for more details on purchasing one of these unbelievable, beautiful, original Hawkeye prints of your favorite Hawkeye players. Again, that's Under the Kitchen on Facebook. Thank you to Randy for sponsoring this segment. So yes, the news on this Monday, Theo Akwuba, an Iowa target, 6'11", big man from Louisiana-Lafayette, formerly of Portland, really good defensive presence, shot blocker, really athletic. I mentioned the other day on one of these videos, he's not real polished offensively, but it's clear that Fran is targeting an athletic, rebounding, defensive big, which I applaud Fran for doing that. And I've heard a lot of criticism on Fran today because now this is the second straight target that Iowa has missed out on. They end up in the top 5 for Fardaz Amack. He selects Texas Tech. They end up in the top 2 for Akwuba. He selects Ole Miss, which, by the way, has no real recent history of producing really good big men or NFL or NBA products in general. So that makes it even harder to swallow. So the question is it because of NIL? And I don't have an exact answer for you. I don't know what the deal making involved here is, but my understanding is that Iowa is not yet offering a collective for these players. And certainly the incentive right now in the transfer portal seems to be largely money. And I'm not going to complain about this. I mentioned I'm going to do a video here at some point. We had a lot of news here recently to break, but I'm going to do a video at some point talking about NIL and how do you regulate this? Do you regulate it and its impact on college basketball, specifically Iowa? Because I've had a lot of people ask me how much of this is NIL, and I don't have a percentage. I can't answer that definitively. I will say this, that Iowa, in my opinion, is a very attractive place to go as a big man right now. I mean, you look at what Luka Garza was able to do, and yeah, I know he's not yet a regular role player in the NBA, but I think just the fact that he was the player of the year, and he was fairly highly recruited, but for a guy who, like Theo Akwuba, who'd come here, and I think he'd be guaranteed to be the starter. I really do. I think Fran wants to get Filip Rebraca. This is just me hypothesizing. I think Fran wants to get Filip Rebraca out of that 5 spot, at least for a portion of the game. They've got Riley Mulvey and now Josh Agundale returning. So I think Filip Rebraca is a better shooter than he is highlighted at Iowa, by the way. But if they can get him off the 5 spot and play him more at the 4, a guy like Theo Akwuba has got playing time immediate, like 25 to 30 minutes a game potentially. So I don't know why you wouldn't come here again with Iowa's history of producing big men now, specifically Garza. And I know Keegan Murray's not a 5, but the relevance of NBA now producing NBA talent, that's certainly a plus for Iowa. Ole Miss, on the other hand, again, there's not much recent history there. But I guarantee you these SEC schools, I don't care if we're talking football or basketball, there are plenty of big donors who are willing to throw money at a kid like Theo Akwuba. So is that present in Iowa? I think it probably should be. I'm not going to rip anybody in the administration, but certainly Iowa is behind. Again, how many times have we said that? Iowa's behind this and Iowa's behind that. They were behind the Chris Doyle situation. They were behind the Jane Meyer situation. It's sort of a habit that the Iowa Athletic Department has of not being proactive enough, and you miss out competitively. And it's not fair to the players who are on the roster right now. Frankly, it's not fair to Fran McCaffery. I'm going to come to his defense because I think he's working his tail off on the recruiting trail. Now, this doesn't mean that all hope is lost. I do think Iowa will still get a 5. If you're heading into next year without a transfer portal 5, that's a big L in the recruiting category for Fran McCaffery, right? There's no question about it. I mentioned on the show the other day, Osuni is a guy, St. Bonaventure, that potentially could be a target. I'm going to read you Andrew Slater. He's a college basketball reporter. He had reported that Osuni had interest from Iowa in addition to a number of other schools. Now, here are the schools that Andrew Slater had reported had contacted Osuni, and this was just, a week ago? So Iowa, Iowa State, Notre Dame, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, LSU, Maryland, Texas. Lots of schools. Now, keep in mind, Texas is losing their big Trey Mitchell in the portal, another guy Iowa's contacted. But there's a lot of competition for Usuni, and I certainly haven't heard anything further. But I would guess that Fran is going to be pushing hard for Usuni. I have no reason to think he wouldn't. He's very similar to Theo Akwuba. In fact, I think he might be a bit more polished than Akwuba, plays in a better conference than Akwuba. So, again, we'll see if Iowa can make a push for him. One other note on Osuni's recruitment, Andrew Slater also reporting that Kyle Lofton, St. Bonnie's point guard, entered the portal, and that, according to Slater, they would like to play together. Probably not a deal breaker, but something to note. They would like to play together. Lofton, a pure point guard, not a great three-point shooter. And here's why I bring this up. Is there a possibility? I mean, if you're Fran right now, how desperate are you for a big guy? I don't know if you're desperate at this point, but I think you're starting to get to that point. Do you consider throwing a scholarship at a guy like Kyle Lofton? Why not? Now, you'd love for him to be able to be a higher percentage three-point shooter. Let me give you his percentages so far in his career. By the way, he's got 1 year left. So you're not taking up any scholarships for 23-24, and Iowa has those 2 scholarships to give out. So maybe consider doing that if it would be incentive to get Osuni. Now, St. Bonaventure, again, he's been there 4 years. I'm talking Kyle Lofton. He's averaged 14.4 points a game, 14.1 points per game, 14.4, 12.8. He's been a pillar of consistency. Now, his three-point percentage has dropped off. Started off strong his first 2 years. He was at 33% and 34% respectively. His last 2 years, 24% and 28%. So there's a concern there from a three-point shooting perspective, but he is a good scorer and a good defender. So perhaps that Fran opts to do this, and you can play. Maybe you play DeSante Bowen sometime at the 2. I think that's a question. But again, why not? Why not at least make a push here? And so far, the reports are that Iowa is not involved with Kyle Lofton. So again, take that for what you may. That has not been reported that Iowa has contacted him. There are a number of schools that were on that list for Osuni that have contacted Lofton, including LSU. So we'll see. Not giving Fran advice. He understands how to recruit much better than I ever would, but that's something to note. The other guy Iowa has been linked to is Trey Mitchell. John Rothstein reported here a couple weeks ago that Iowa had contacted Trey Mitchell. And according to Rothstein, the following schools at that point had contacted Trey Mitchell. And I'm guessing this list has really grown. DePaul, Iowa, Vanderbilt, Utah State, West Virginia, Washington State. So I haven't heard any more on either of these guys, any updates from anybody about their recruitment. But now that Iowa's missed out on Akwuba, I would have to think that Fran's going to be doing everything he can to go after Osuni and Trey Mitchell. Both guys, I think Mitchell's a better scorer, but both guys give you rim protection. They give you size, length, rebounding. I still have faith in Fran getting somebody in the portal, all right? I think he's making a hard push, and I just don't know. I don't see them striking out. Not with what they've produced recently as far as pro talent, success at that position, and available minutes. Iowa has all of that to offer. I get NIL's a problem. I get it. But hopefully, right now, I don't know why there couldn't be, like if there's a private donor that wants to contact a player directly and say, hey, you come here, I'll give you the such and such. I don't know why that can't happen. There's not much regulation on this right now. So if you got some money to spend, I certainly don't have the thousands it would take, but if you got some money to spend, maybe reach out to one of these kids. And I feel ridiculous even saying this. I can't believe that this has gotten to this point in college basketball so quickly. But because we wanted NIL, because the players wanted NIL, this is where we're at. So like it or leave it, it is here to stay. So appreciate you tuning in for yet another segment as Theo Akwuba picks Ole Miss over Iowa. A reminder to please check out our sponsor, Randy Engel, over at Under the Kitchen and his Hawkeye Man Cave, Kinnick Under the Kitchen, but his business Under the Kitchen, where you can purchase authentic Hawkeye player artwork. Visit Under the Kitchen on Facebook for more details.